All right, so I'm Brad Hutchison. I'm the product manager over at Oregon Real Estate Forums. Basically, anytime you guys experience the forums after they have been treated by our forums committee and our board of managers, basically I take those forms and put them online for everybody to use. And I work with our partners, and I'm joined with
Donna Jo Merrifield. I am a principal broker manager at Coldwell Banker Valley Brokers. We're currently sitting in our Albany office, and I am on the forums committee and been teaching these 2020 form changes this year. So I think we're going to get started. So as you can see on the screen right now, that we want to really advise people, if they ever have any questions or suggestions, to always remember they can email customer service at OREF online, because that is the best way to communicate with us for any kinds of suggestions. These are living, breathing forms, and so we will be changing them again and again, and it's based on basically feedback from the users. So please let us know how they're going, and I'll bring that up a couple different times on a specific forms as well. All right, so I'm going to skip the slide about a little bit about our history of us. That's not really important and germane to today's thing, but you've got the thing in front of you if you care. Again, customer service OREF online, but I am a principal broker for my company, and we follow the laws, of course, but we have standard practices in different areas, and your office might have their own policies and procedures. And so if you ever have a question about a form, I would start with your principal broker, and you'll probably hear me say that a little bit today. If you come and ask me a question, I'm going to say, well, you might want to check with your principal broker on that. I might say this is how our office handles it, but keeping in mind, I'm not an attorney by all means, and I don't know all the answers, but we can probably get back to you with those answers if we don't know. And then a couple things we want to do, a little bit of housekeeping, if you will. The forms that we have, everybody has a license to use these forms, and we need to make sure that everybody that is using the forms has a license, if that makes sense. And so you should be able to do a little bit of quick check when you get any offer on the forms to make sure that the person that wrote the offer is actually the name on the bottom of the form. It'll be in small print, but that means that is the person that is licensed through OREF to use said form. If it looks like it's a scanned document or somebody blocked out and typed in maybe a different font of a name, you could pretty much guarantee it is not the licensed user that's doing that. And so we're asking you guys to make sure to keep an eye on these, that they are authentic. There is some questions that come up sometimes, like, can we just have one subscription for the office? And unfortunately, no. And as you would see on the OREF website, they're putting all over there, sharing is not caring. In this case, I'm a sharer in most cases of my life, but with regard to licensing for forms, especially OREF, it is not the case. You do not want to share your forms with anybody. They are intended to be independently controlled. We have each broker having their own license, then we can ensure that their clients are having the best experience. So when sharing occurs, we cannot guarantee people have the most recent forms or transactions are securely being performed and more. It's important that you're using authentic forms because we want to be sure that your buyers and sellers have the most up-to-date documentation. Sometimes, and again, this was my first year on OREF Forms Committee, and I understood a little bit more about what happens during mid-year changes. So things can happen during the year that we're changing some stuff, and we can make those changes and they'll be current on the forms in the middle of the year. And so we want to be sure you're on the most current form. Another way you can be sure that that's the case is when you're looking at the name on the bottom of the form, also look at the copyright. Make sure it says copyright 2020. Or Brad, maybe you can answer this. Are all of them say copyright 2020 and 2020, or ones that only changed 2020?
No, so the ones that up until January 15th, they will dictate the year that they were published.
Okay.
So all the ones that came out on the 15th, which was yesterday, should say 2020 at the bottom. So those are the most up-to-date and current.
But you'll still see copyright 2019 on the forms that haven't been changed.
No, all of them will say 2020.
Okay,
yep,
perfect. Thank you
correct.
for answering that. So also, ensures that the documentation has not been tampered with, and of course it's fair to all agents involved. So those are why we want to be sure we are using the licenses per each licensee. And so I've also had the question, we had the question at OREF as well. Each user should have their individual license through OREF Forms Library. You don't get like one license for the office, as I said earlier. Instead, you're basically buying a seat to have access to it. So you'll be charged in the same as the individual user rate. So it's against all terms to have an individual, to share an individual account with multiple users. Okay, probably enough on that, just necessary. And if you do see some problems with that, please let OREF know, back to that customer service on the OREF one, the email we put up at the front, because we need to know and take care of that. So what to expect in 2020? Brad and I were talking beforehand about this last year and how people update their forms. And I know in my office it's a challenge. We have a person that's really good at it, so we always refer to her, because it's been kind of challenging when you're currently renewing your subscription to OREF. You have to go to orefonline.com, which is fine. But when you're there, you resubscribe and you get this lengthy string of characters. You actually have to take that string of characters, copy, and then go paste it back into zip forms if you can find that page again. So we're currently preparing the site to make it so you purchase your forms. You're going to put in your Oregon real estate license number, and then it's going to automatically validate for whichever platform OREF is available on. Forms will be accessible on new platforms. More details are coming soon, but OREF has heard loud and clear that local agencies would like to explore simplifying their document workflow or explore new platforms. So they are in the talks with numerous organizations outside of zip forms in licensing our documents. So us agents in Oregon are provided with more freedom on how to perform our transactions. However, I want to be noted that ZipLogics has confirmed the release of 2020 forms. So I hope you've all checked it out since yesterday. The big release was the new forms on January 15th. And if you want to know about updates regarding any other platforms, you need to go visit the orefonline.com, or you could contact Brad or Nicole at OREF to ensure your email is updated to receive the latest e-news. This year we hired a forms style guide. So there's spelling on specific words and the way the documents are laid out, referencing to specific terminology, and we've decided that it could all definitely be improved on. And I'm not going to say it's perfect even now that we've hired a stylist. We've found some more errors since the release, and we will be making sure they are taken care of. We just wanted to get them out with the new forms as quickly as possible. So if you see typos still, or like I said earlier, suggestions on a form change, please again let us know. But we're really, really grateful to have a form style guide in place with a professional proofer looking at these and making sure it's more streamlined and everything like that, and making more sense and more cohesive and consistent.
Right. Yeah, going into the year, we're going to be developing something that simplifies, like, I don't know if you've seen sometimes in the forums, it'll say buyer or buyers, and sometimes there's an apostrophe and sometimes there isn't. Well, this year we'll be developing that style guide that we could provide to our proofers that will make it more consistent in any form that you're in. So,
as I think Brad mentioned, or maybe I did already, we have a new site. We're working on that. It's going to be a more streamlined approach. The current site's a little bit dated, but we're giving it a fresh look, so watch for that. And want to talk about that, Brad, at all?
Sure. Just right now, as it stands, I mean, we're hearing it loud and clear. Our phones are swamped at the moment. Like, just renewing your forms has been complicated and more complicated than it needs to be. So with this new website that's going to be rolling out in the next month or two, it'll allow for people from the community to not only easily access, a place where they can renew their forms, but also discuss the forms. So they can hear from other community members best practices, or if they have frequently asked questions, they can find those there as well. We're also going to be implementing some video training. So let's say a new agent enters the market, they'll have a platform that they can learn more about the forms. And beyond that, maybe you just want a refresher or you missed the class, you'll be able to find material there as well. So.
Right, so much more to follow. Keep an eye on that. All right, if there's any questions about those announcements, now would be your opportunity to ask that. Anything? Okay, can you all hear me okay still?
Yeah.
Okay, the reason I ask that is because as we get into the sales contract form, I just want to kind of put a little disclaimer out there that it is very challenging to do a webinar because we cannot see you and or hear you very well. So I'm going to go along with the forms, and each actual document I will pause after I went through all the forms, and I'm going to ask you guys at that moment to ask me any questions. So if you could hold questions till the end of my presentation of each form, because there's multiple changes on some of the forms, then we will go back and do that. And then at the very end, we can go with any general questions you might have or something you maybe thought of after that. Does that sound fair?
Yes.
All right, sounds good. Let's go then. So we're going to start with the form number 1, residential sale agreement. By the way, most changes on the residential sale agreement are for all the sales agreements. We made changes specific to the sale agreement, but it's going to be covered later in other sales agreements. It'll be covered later in the class, like manufactured homes, condominiums, new construction, and vacant land. But for the most part, when I'm talking about changes in this residential form, it would go through all those other forms as well, with some exceptions. All right, on line 108, we changed what used to say there. It used to say make a good faith effort to secure, to say buyer shall request. The term make a good faith effort to secure we viewed as open-ended and allowed for stringing things out. We thought this idea was a good one because it feels like it makes a more immediate request to be sure the process is starting. So buyer shall request the ordering of lender's appraisal no later than expiration of the inspection period at section 10. Okay, easy peasy on that one. FERPTA, you will see a lot of yellow on that screen. I'm not going to bore you guys and read all of this, but I will kind of give you a summary of what this says. Between lines 248 and 271, this was a major rewrite of the FERPTA tax withholding requirement section. We clarified that it doesn't include a foreign corporation that has not elected to be treated as a domestic corporation. We also removed references to OREF 094, the FERPTA certification of non-foreign status, though it still exists. And the warning on confidential information, we took that out as well. We removed references to OREF 93 FERPTA addendum because it has actually been removed from the library. So yay, the FERPTA addendum is gone. I'm sure I'm not, can't even believe I'm not hearing cheering on that one. We added significant verbiage regarding escrow. So if FERPTA applies, even if exempted, buyer and seller must notify escrow to determine how much they can assist the parties. Escrow is instructed to be the qualified substitute, and then escrow also is instructed to give the buyer a qualified substitute statement and not the certificate of non-foreign status due to that confidential information. And if escrow refuses, because there are a few title companies or escrow companies that are still not wishing to comply for FERPTA, so if they were to refuse to comply, then the parties have the right, but not the obligation, to move the sale to another escrow company. So we put in there that buyers and sellers share in those cancellation fees and have a 5 business day delay of closing clause that has been added.